Mad Wolf here, and today I want to talk to you about the Sega Genesis, also known as the Mega Drive in other parts of the world. That is not North America, Canada. Not sure about South America. I think it still might be called the Genesis down there. Okay. Now, yeah, we've all heard, the story by now. Sega does what Nintendo don't, and we've heard the modern YouTubers talking about how, oh, this is just 90s Edge. Frankly, when it comes to the 90s Edge thing, I think of that more like the 2000s, early 2000s, PlayStation 2 kind of era. As far as the Sega does what Nintendo don't and all those marketing gimmicks, you really need to go to like Walmart or Kmart or whatever, Best Buy, and actually look at what games are coming out for these systems and actually form an opinion. Which one looks better? You can even look it up online and what are these games and what are they for? But, just judging from what a psycho dude in a suit tells you, no, all businesses, they're just out to make money. So that's all that is. But one thing I do want to talk about is the diversity of games. We've heard some people say, oh, well, it's mostly sport games on the Genesis. I don't know if they've actually looked at a Sega Genesis library. Sure, there's some sport games for it. It's actually a lot of them. The system went from 89 to 98. So there's a huge variety of there, not just sport games. You got friggin' arcade classics. You got shooters, like side-scrolling shooters. And not to be confused with vertical shooters, although there's a couple of those for the Genesis that I have in my collection. You have platform games, the ever iconic Sonic the Hedgehog, some other games, like Tasmania. There's role-playing games like Shadowrun and Phantasy Star. So when people are saying, oh, well, it's just sport games, or it's just trash games, it's just shovelware. No, it's really not. And yeah, the one sport game I really have for it, unless you count like Street Fighter or Fatal Fury, because, martial art tournaments technically is sports, but the one sport game I really have for it is NBA Hang Time.
He jams it in. He scores.
And I like basketball. I'm sorry, I'm not a big fan of football. I have considered getting Mutant League Hockey, because I do like hockey, and Mutant League's fun. But, yeah, really, there is so much more to the Genesis than just sport games, like some people on YouTube have gone off about.
Give me Genesis!
Another issue that people have gone off about is the graphics and the sound don't sound as good as the Super Nintendo, which I'm really not doing a Sega versus Nintendo video here. I've already done something like that. I've already talked about the console wars of the 90s. But Super Nintendo is technically impressive, technologically impressive. And the sound is pretty beautiful on Super Nintendo. It's very orchestral, it's very symphonic. Certain things just don't work, like explosions. For some reason they sound muffled. How do you put a silencer on an explosion? Now that said, a lot of people also say the graphics are much more impressive on the Super Nintendo. Yeah, sure, the colors actually look a little bit darker, a little bit more fleshed out, a little bit more lifelike, whereas the Genesis is cartoonish, very vibrant. But at the same time, when you play the Sega Genesis, everything is very crisp, everything is clean. You could easily identify stuff. There have been some issues with Super Nintendo games where it's just too dark and you can't see what the hell you're doing. Once again, not comparing apples to oranges. That's banana. But, yeah, the Sega Genesis has some really beautiful 16-bit graphics. And as far as the sound, yes, people have complained it sounds too tinny. It sounds too artificial. For me, that's like comparing an electric guitar with an acoustic guitar. But seriously, just listen to some of these music tracks. Now, me personally, I think that sounds pretty awesome. It's pretty rockin'. And sure, stuff as pretty and as symphonic as the Super Mario World soundtrack wouldn't work in some things like Road Rash, RoboCop vs. Terminator, Alien 3, even Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic the Hedgehog has a certain style to it where the sound from the Super Nintendo, it wouldn't work. And when you pick up those rings as Sonic, that really is a nice little chime you get there. It really does sound like he's like, ching. So, I don't know. I really cannot complain about the tinny sound. For me, it works. For me, it sounds good. For me, it looks good. There is one issue that I do have to talk about with the Nintendo, the original NES Nintendo, and we all know it. And yes, this is where I am comparing the Genesis to the Nintendo, but there's always these issues nowadays. You gotta blow in the cartridges. You gotta clean the cartridges. You have to change out the pin connectors in the actual system. In some rare occasions, I've even had to take apart the Super Nintendo cartridges and install new batteries for save files. It happens, the batteries die. The Sega Genesis, I've never had that problem with a single game. A few times I've had to clean them. Buying them on eBay, you never know what the sellers put them through, what kind of homes they come from, etc., etc. But I've never had to return a Sega game because it simply did not work. And to say that, Nintendo is better, I'm just like, both of them have their strengths and weaknesses. And I do think that's one of Sega's strengths, is the system has been out there since '89. Almost as old as I am. I'm 88. So, the fact that these games are still working, that you have minimal problems, that is pretty damn cool. I have to give a sigh of defeat, because in closing, dude, we all know what happened. Sega pretty much went downhill shortly after this thing stopped making games. And yeah, I say that, people might be thinking, oh, well, 95, they still had the Saturn and the Dreamcast. No. One of my latest games for it that I always used to rent at Blockbuster was The Lost World, Jurassic Park. And you gotta think, that movie came out in 97. The Dreamcast was already a thing in Japan in 98, and then in 99 we got the Dreamcast. So this is already the tail end of Sega making systems. And with Sega pretty much done making system, all those exclusives are gone. Yeah, we can actually get like compilations and stuff for whatever system we want, Switch, PS2, GameCube, whatever. But there's a pretty big handful of games that you won't get to experience on the Switch or the PS3. Games like RoboCop vs. Terminator or Alien 3, even Road Rash. Road Rash wasn't actually done by Sega, it was Electronic Arts. But everything about it felt like, this is a Sega game. This is not Nintendo. This is not a computer game. And then when they did the PlayStation era, Road Rash didn't feel the same. It was still fun. It was still a good game. It did not feel the same. The sound was different. The music was different. Even the mechanics felt slightly different. And I don't know. For me, it's kind of sad because now Sega games are associated as jokes. And there's good fans out there of Sega. And they want Sega to make a comeback. They would want to see, new Sega coming out. But it's just not going to happen. And for me, that's where I have to hold up my hands and just a sigh of defeatism. I'd love to play Afterburner, a brand new Afterburner on the big screen, brand new Sega console, even PS5. If Afterburner came back, just simple arcade action, here I am playing an F-14, flying through the clouds, volcanoes, whatever. I'd love to do that. So, it's the end of an era. And that said, there's a good handful of exclusives, like I said, you're not going to get on modern systems. If you are interested in a Genesis, I can't say about a Mega Drive, but you could generally get these on eBay for less than $100. There's all these controllers out there, all these options, 6-button arcade sticks, and the games are relatively cheap. There's a few expensive ones, but for $100, you could probably get 20, maybe 50 games. There's a lot of lots that you can actually buy and get a whole variety of stuff that you would never play on Switch or GameCube or PS2. Sure, you have your emulators and ROMs, but I would never condone such a thing due to illegalness and copyright and blah, 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 blah. But at the same time, I think this is a pretty solid system. I think the games developed for it were pretty good. I didn't even get into the Sega CD attachment. So, that's the video. End of an era. End of the 90s. End of Sega. And I think it was a good run. 1989 to 1998. Whole variety of games. You guys may want to just be like, Sonic the Hedgehog, Chili Dogs. I'm like, Afterburner, Road Rash, Altered Beast, Streets of Rage, Golden Axe. Even Shadowrun. Yeah, they did Shadowrun for the Super Nintendo. It's a completely different game. The Shadowrun for Super Nintendo is a frickin' point-and-click game, for God's sakes. But it's done. It's over with. And Sega is pretty much not really buried. Maybe buried with a hand coming out, because they're still, publishing. They're still doing arcades. But it's a decade we're never getting back. It's a style we're never getting back. And, I don't know, if you're interested in it, check some of those games out on YouTube. Classic Game Room was a huge YouTube channel dedicated to, retro video games. And really cool guy, Mark. I don't think he's really doing video games anymore. Usually I see him do comic books. But check out that channel. With the way video games are going nowadays, I really do feel the fans have handed their wallets over to the corporate fat cats. And sure, they want to complain about, Electronic Arts and Activision, but they seem to praise Microsoft for buying Bethesda. And I'm like, guys, Microsoft is the company that developed Windows 95, Windows 98, Windows 8, Vista, and all these things typically crashed a lot. Xbox really is not doing anything in the gaming department. They're just letting other people do it. And I don't know, I'm just like, I would like to see some exclusives. Hell, they bought Rare, the guys that did Battletoads. Oh, they really butchered Rare as far as I'm concerned. So, once again, I'm not here to spread hate or anything. If you guys like Xbox, hey, that's your thing. I like Sega, and it's not coming back. And for the price of a brand new system coming out, you could probably get a couple shelves worth of just quality Sega games. Some great tunes, some crisp graphics. And that's my video. I hope you liked it. I hope you found it enlightening. And if you did, be sure to hit that like button. Hit subscribe if you're new to the channel. And until I see you guys in the next show, just remember, Sega!